Welcome to Parachum, Chum with the Spirits. We have Parachum, Jason, OG, JD. We are going to kick off this episode.
You forgot the spirits that might be here too.
They're not taking shots with us.
True.
So we're going to take a shot. This is a Kraken Golden.
God damn it.
A spiced golden rum.
Ooh.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
That's way better than the black.
No, it's not.
That was smooth.
Your voice cracked.
I don't understand how you could drink some things and that's...
It has
It tastes like candy.
Yeah.
That's true.
It tastes like bad stuff.
So we were briefly talking before we kicked this episode off. It's been how many years since we've been sitting in this?
I don't know. I remember being here. It was closer to 2020 than 2025 for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what
You said it was 2018?
It was pre-COVID.
Oh, really?
I do remember that.
So then it would have been...
Mid-2019, early 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, which was the first time I met Jason, and he's just a really interesting guy to talk to. I don't know how much conversation you've had with Jason, but
I've been at Last Seen Massacre site with him.
Is that
in
right?
the middle of dark.
Okay, well, so you know better than I do.
And in all defense, sorry, you were also there with Eric.
Yeah. It was all good.
We can fill a full show about Eric, but we will not do that.
We love you, buddy, but we...
Yeah, I got to do the Mac in Tervilla with Jason, and he's like, "Hey, why don't you just come with me?" I'm like, "Holy shit, this is cool!" So I had a great night with Jason, and I learned a lot, and he's got amazing stuff that he's experienced. So,
When it's you've done podcasting on outdoors, you've done podcasting on supernatural, you do investigations, you've done cons, you've done what haven't you actually done?
I realized that. I started on Ectoplasm Show in 2015, so this will have been, if we do keep it going, 10 years.
That's awesome.
And we did over 450 episodes, and Josh and I haven't recorded in a year and a half. So it was a good show. It was a lot of fun, and I did do episodes with several other people, including Larry.
Yeah.
And nothing against Larry or the other people that I did episodes with, but Josh and I kind of had a good personality, we really worked well off of each other. I just hadn't found that with anybody else specifically to keep that same show going.
Yeah,
it may come back. Josh, we may do once a month, but I'm not 100% sure yet.
I think we kind of feel the same way when we've talked about doing a couple shows if somebody couldn't make it, and it just never feels quite the same. There's a click with the three of us, the dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we said we're gonna talk about a subject and we're like, I don't know if we can do a full episode on this, and before we realize that it's an hour and a half into it, and we're still going.
And it's all been top level, like we haven't done deep dive.
Yeah.
We have a tendency to just
bullshit.
Well, you guys are all in the same room. Other than Larry and one other person coming over to my house, Josh and everybody else, we were in separate places across the internet, and that's a whole nother thing.
It is.
So Josh and I, most people didn't realize we were not in the same room, but everybody else that I did over the internet with podcasting, you could tell, because there's something about looking at each other
connection
and talking and not talking over each other.
for you to find that, to be able to do that remote, that's a kind of unique niche.
And I kind of felt like with Ectoplasm Show with 450 episodes, it's not that you can't talk about the same thing over and over again, but you kind of it's kind of repetitive.
Yeah.
At some point. So, I don't know, like I said, I don't know if that's going to come back or not.
I'll definitely let us know if it does. I mean, Larry's already got you on the follow. And
Tell us a little bit about the Woodlife.
Woodlife?
Yeah.
So, Woodlife is something I started a long time ago, and it's actually going to be I'm starting this year. I'm in the process of starting a property development company. And that is what wood life is going to be for me going forward. It's going to be buying land, putting a cabin on it for like an outdoorsman kind of property, and selling it. And that's my plan going forward with wood life specifically. The other thing that I do in the outdoors field is Midwest Bushcraft Show, and that's events where a bunch of people go and camp together, and we have presenters and speakers talk on topics with bushcraft survival outdoors, and everybody just kind of hangs out. We build a community, and I've found a really good path of doing those kind of events going forward. I'm planning 3 this year. One is next month. It's Midwest Bushcraft Show Winter Camp, and it's in Lebanon, Missouri. And we have 5 speakers on stuff like winter foraging.
Like, don't die in the winter.
Yeah. Well, winter foraging, we have a fly fisherman because it's on one of the best fly fishing rivers in Missouri. We have a person doing winter sleep systems, and we've sold a lot of tickets already for camping. And like, my tent is a big canvas tent with a wood stove in it, and a lot of people will be out there with the same kind of tents, and it's just hanging out, having a good time, learning a thing or two, or just enjoying. There's no reason you can't enjoy camping in the wintertime. This year we're adding a summer camp, which will be the opposite spectrum. A lot of people don't go camping mid-July because it's super hot, but we're going to have an event structured the same way during the summer where just everybody getting together having a good time, really.
So I have a question for you on that, and this is off subject. Yeah, shut up. I think I think I've asked you this before, but when you look at like today's day and age, people going out and camping, as opposed to pre-1900s, pre-revolutionary or the Industrial Revolution time period, I noticed that there's a lot of bugs and spiders and all that kind of stuff. Were they as numerous back then, or did people just not care about that kind of stuff?
Yes and yes. I mean, that's the same kind of thing.
I know it's a random question. I'm just curious to hear.
They didn't have off, that's for sure.
Yeah. But people would, like during the Civil War, people would they would just camp out in the grass and stuff.
Well, I can say that in my lifetime, and from what I know previous, that ticks seem to be getting worse.
Yeah.
There are new strains of ticks that come with new kinds of diseases, and they do pop up. And that's been a newer thing. I mean, there's always been ticks.
But the
I've been
diseases,
alive.
yeah, but the diseases,
They're more prolific than they used to be. The thing is I don't know. I can judge based on my lifetime, but I don't know if 100 years ago ticks were as bad and people just knew how to deal with them.
Yeah. That's a fair point.
Did they have certain remedies that would keep them off of them? Versus, I mean, because I think a lot of that natural knowledge has kind of disappeared on lilac bushes versus,
Yeah.
Yeah, because shit, I remember going on that hike a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Out at
That's pretty bad.
Clinton Lake. We went in the summer and hiked the horse trails, and hundreds.
Oh yeah,
hundreds of ticks.
That's like if you're doing that much duct tape on your socks, and then you do an outer layer where it's sticky, so it catches them as they come up.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, and I was in shorts.
There's
the other thing is you have to look at it from a perspective of living a life that way and recreation. Somebody living on their life that way 150 years ago wouldn't have walked through where we walked through on the recreation trail.
Good point.
That's fair. That's real fair.
So.
That's a very valid point. And also to shout out, I don't know if you're still doing it anymore, but this guy does amazing work in building kits and leather work for outdoor stuff.
What do you mean? What kind of kits?
No, I've only ever really made one thing.
Okay.
And it's not the leather work, it's just a little spice kit.
But you made me that bag. It wasn't a leather bag, but you made me that
Tell me about
pencil
the spice
pouch
kit.
thing. Spice kit's pretty cool.
It's a little round tin with 5 little glass cylinders in it that hold spices.
So you can take them out when you're camping. And
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So, is that something you market and sell, or just?
I mean, I've had it on Etsy for like
Oh,
10 years as well.
Okay,
10
that's
years,
cool.
but I've maybe sold 50 or 60 of them. I don't really. There's part of me that wanted Wood Life to be that, but that market of outdoor products made with canvas and leather, I'm not, and I don't feel like I will be at the point of focusing on my time to get the quality that's already out there.
Yeah.
That's part of with the events and with what I'm pushing with that. I give those kind of people a platform to show off their stuff. One thing that I've really built with the Midwest Bushcraft Show over the last few years, when I found, because I started that in 2018, I did several events until I found really what worked and what felt right and what felt good. Not that they were failures, but now, like, I have been lucky enough with the winter camp that I have probably $5,000 plus worth of raffle items to give away from people that make stuff like that.
oh wow,
That's cool.
And that's really what my focus with that is yeah, I want to learn how to make that stuff, but I'm never going to, I've realized I'm never going to put the time in, because I have other focuses, to make the quality stuff that they do. So, yeah.
Now, I know these gents over here wanted to talk about some of the experiences that you have had that I may have also had as well.
So do you want to run down, we talked about this a little bit before we started, do you want to run down some of the stuff that they don't believe that you've told them?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Imagine,
That would be everything.
That was starting with 6th grade. And you have that much time.
All right.
Let's start with the desert.
I mean, we don't have to go through everything.
No.
Yeah,
key points,
refresh our mind about the desert.
Yeah,
The
I'll let you tell the story through your
Okay.
eyes and see what they think.
So, the first time we went out to the desert, and we had been doing some sky watching for a little while before this. We would pick a random place. I would find a random place online on a map that said there was low light pollution there, and we would go sit even out on the side of the road and look at the sky, and normally see some stuff we couldn't explain. Actually, almost every time there's been at least something that, even if it's a conventional thing, we don't know what it is. So we were doing that for like a year or so before.
Yeah. We're still doing it.
Yeah, I found a place on a map that I wanted to find a place within an 8-hour drive of Kansas City that had the lowest light pollution with free camping. That was my goal. And I pulled up the map and I found a place outside of Campo, Colorado, called Picture Canyon. And it's in the very southeast corner of Colorado, close enough to the border with Oklahoma that the second time we went out there, I went on a hike and ended up in Oklahoma.
I didn't go on the hike. I had a different experience.
Yeah, we'll get to that. And you may have already told that on here, but we'll get to that.
I don't think I have.
So the first time we went out there, and like I mentioned before, things kind of run together. But I know what happened out there. We've been out there twice. I know what we experienced. I just have a hard time thinking about what happened on which time, except for the very big things. So the first time we went out there, it was BLM land. It still is, but you can't legally camp out there anymore.
And it's that.
We're on BLM.
Yeah, when he told me that, I was like, shit, BLM owns land?
Yeah. They changed it. But at that time, you can go out there and camp. So it was a 30-minute drive from the closest town out into desert canyon land. It's called Picture Canyon because there are Native American pictographs etched into the walls out there. There's really only one that you can find, and then a bunch of people from the 50s that went out there and carved their names in there. But really, where we camped, you can camp anywhere out there, but where we pulled into was just the end of a drive. There's a little roundabout with a vault toilet and 3 picnic tables with awnings over them, like brick structure, stone structure awnings.
Yep.
And we picked the one at the end and set up our tents behind it. And I think this was like October, maybe, around that time?
Yeah, because it was cold.
It was late in the year, not early in the year.
Yep.
And we set up, and well, actually we drove out there, and we got there an hour before dark. And we weren't planning on doing anything that night. We were just going to set up and hang out. And so we set up, and we got set up before dark, and we decided that we were going to hike up to the top of the rim of the canyon next to us. It was only like 50, 60 feet above us.
Yeah, only like 100 yards away.
Yeah, it wasn't far, and we didn't have to really, like, other than going uphill, it wasn't like we had to hike around to get up there.
No, it only
Not
took
that
like 10
specific
minutes.
spot. So we set up our tents, which Larry didn't have a tent. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
In the wintertime.
Well, no, he had a tent. So the thing
Well, this
was,
is in the winter.
October is cold
was-
enough.
it was-
Okay.
so a little side note about Larry and his preparedness for outdoors.
There's no preparedness.
Okay.
His
It's just not us then.
So his dad gave him 2 tents to use on this trip. And we were planning on staying at Picture Canyon for at least 2 nights.
Yeah. 2 or 3. Yeah.
And we get out there, and he sets up his tent, and it's a backpacking tent, just about as big as this table.
Big enough to fit one of my ass cheeks
so
in.
he could.
Some of those low.
I don't know how he thought he was going to do it, but he was going to do it. He set it up, and he was going to do it. And I set up my tent and my cot, and I put a light on my cot because we were going to hike up to the canyon, and I didn't want anybody messing with our stuff if they walked up.
Yeah.
It's just something I do when I'm away from camp. When it's dark, I put a light on in the tent. So we go up there, and we sit up there for a little bit. We don't really see anything while we're up there.
Something just landed on me.
And then, it starts to get dark, and we don't want to traverse down the hill in the dark, so we head back down, and we're sitting in the front of the awning. So the picnic table and the awning's here, our tents are back here, and we're sitting on the other side, which is towards the other canyon wall, just kind of watching the sky. We're listening to podcasts, we're drinking, and we're just hanging out. And we didn't hear the screaming the first time. That was the second time.
No, that was the first
That
time.
was the first time?
Yeah.
Okay, so we hear... I thought the second time was when the car was in the parking lot.
That was. No, the first time was when the car was in the parking lot.
Okay. Sorry. I knew that this happened, I just didn't know which time this happened. So there was another car in the parking lot. One of the times we went. And if Larry says it was the first time, I believe him.
Yeah, it was the first time.
There was another car in the parking lot. And they had a sign in at the thing for people that were going to be camping in the backcountry. And it was a couple. Probably a younger couple. Camping somewhere in the valley.
But we didn't see a fire. We didn't see anything.
No.
So they were...
Well, because it was a big area and there was multiple canyons.
Mm-hmm.
So they could have been anywhere. At some point, we do hear drumming.
Yeah.
And we start hearing screaming. And I'm yelling, too, to try to get a response. And there's like this screaming that sounds like a woman screaming. And we're just sitting there. And yeah, it's freaky. And I'm sure Larry was terrified.
Well, screaming, let me ask. I mean, we're talking like a panic scream.
No, just like
something like someone's terrified. Or,
It was definitely female.
Okay.
And it could have been interpreted as something bad happening.
Yeah.
You don't think it was a bobcat?
It wasn't just like a lady yelling out for somebody's attention. It just yelling to their friend or yelling to whoever might be there. It was a scream.
Like a high pitch.
It wasn't a yell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But multiples, right?
There was a few over a good 5-10 minutes.
Now, I will admit, we did think what we heard were voices
We did hear
a
voices.
while, but looking back on it, I have to admit that was more than likely me.
Yes.
Because
So,
I found out when I get terrified,
Did you guys know this? Have you guys talked about this on the show?
I mumble.
Okay. We'll go into that story next.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Larry's talking over himself. when he's scared.
So that was more than likely me.
So we were listening to podcasts, and I kept having to stop it because we kept thinking we were hearing somebody talking next to us. A year and a half later, through other circumstances, which I'll tell later tonight if you want me to,
Yes.
we find out that it was probably Larry. It was probably Larry mumbling to himself because he was terrified. We'll talk about that instance later.
Remember the flashlight or the lights on the canyon wall?
There were lights like maybe car lights off in the distance, or there were some lights on the wall like deeper in the canyon.
But they didn't look like
there
flashlights.
were people out there though.
Yeah.
And the drumming could have been far off machinery. You never know when it.
Or they could have been
It did
listening to
sound
something.
like drums. And so the thing about it was not only was there the pictograph on the wall, there were teepee rings out there from like 200 years after the pictograph. And there were foundations for old farmsteads from the early 1800s and stuff too.
That's such a nice picture.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Well-
nothing can survive out there.
The thing as I mentioned with the outdoor stuff, I've been an outdoorsman for as long as I've been interested in the paranormal stuff. I started being interested in the paranormal when I was 7 and I saw a UFO. Before that, I was an outdoorsman. So I have both passions in life. So this was really like both blending together. I can say with a little bit of shame that we didn't spend the night there because of what happened later that night. Because there hasn't been, like, I'm burdened with knowledge, and I think about every time I camp all the shitty stuff that can happen to me out there. Like, all the bad stuff. But I usually, like, for the most part, 99% of the time, I make it through the night even if I don't sleep. But we didn't stay the night there because after all that, after the drumming and the screaming and the lights on the first night, at 1:32 o'clock in the morning, we stand up, we're going to go to bed. And I turn around, and instead of the one light I left on in my tent, there were two. There was the one on the end of my cot, and then there was the one on the other end of my tent that was the same brightness, the same color, and we both stop. We both stand up at the same time, we turn around, we both stop, we look at it for a good 90 seconds, more, like a minute. And the one where the head of my cot is, where the light was not that I set up, went out. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna fucking sleep tonight. We'll just sit up all night. And then Larry had his tent the size of this table, so we were like,
He's not gonna.
well, fuck, we're just gonna drive in town and get a hotel room.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. We packed up and we.
Yeah, but you're not going to fucking spoon with Larry.
No.
No, that's
I'm not.
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, kind of, because obviously as you can tell, I'm kind of...
That was the first time we went out there. Other stuff happened the second
Do
time.
you think it could have been, you're hearing screams like a woman? I mean, there's been reports of screams in the woods and even in
Bobcats sound similar.
But do you
to
think
that.
it could have been? I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do a Larry. I'm gonna go out.
Yeah.
Out.
Do you think
Past,
it's a
I'm gonna go
couple-
past left
couple
foot.
having backdoor access?
No, that'd be great. I hadn't since my honeymoon. I'm thinking. You think it could have been like a cryptid, like a Sasquatch or something like that? Because there's been reports of that.
The thing is everything that happened that night, except for the light in my tent, could have been any of that stuff.
It
could have been an animal screaming. It could have been far off machinery drumming. It could have been Larry talking in my ear. Didn't even know. But that light was there.
It could have been the two
And we
couples out
watched
doing
it.
a ritual.
So was it?
And what happened
it
to
a
it?
lantern,
Was
or
it
was
gone
it-
when you went back to your tent? The
No.
light?
So I know for perspective, the camera can't see it, but for your guys' perspective, we were as far away from our tents as the couch is from us.
Yeah.
So it's not like we had to stand up and look far off.
And you
to
didn't
see
have
it.
two lights in that tent.
No,
No.
I had one lantern that was an electric lantern that is one of those pop-up lanterns
Yeah.
on
360.
the end of next to the door on my cot.
What do you
the
count
other
for?
light was on the
It-
other end of my cot.
But it was as bright, almost like a duplicate.
Same light.
Yeah,
Same color, same shape, same brightness. just on the other side of my tent.
I'll preface this too with when stuff happens normally, I'll turn to someone and be like, "Did you see that?" It froze us. We
both stood there
and watched it
disappear.
And then he looked at me and goes, "I'm not sleeping here tonight." And I'm like, eh.
Yeah, I think I know you well enough that you don't get shook on stuff like that.
Yeah, but when it's your tent.
You I can see getting... Oh, no. That's
I have to admit, and Larry knows this isn't a big shock to Larry, and I'm not saying something that I know that'll hurt his feelings.
I'm a pussy.
Yeah.
We would have just stayed up all night.
Yeah,
The one thing is, I'm a big outdoorsman, and I can survive out there. But I was out there with him. 30-minute drive, which would have been several hours walk,
dragging me.
if some shit went down. And I would have been with him. And I could outrun Larry from whatever it was, but I would have felt better.
That's fair enough.
You're falling into my game plan when we go for Sasquatching. It's like, I don't have to be the fastest.
So, the second time we went out there, we were supposed to have a lot more people, and what happened?
So what about
other people didn't show up, and it was just me and Larry.
Here you again.
So before you get to the second time we went out to Picture Canyon, tell them about the second night of that expedition.
Okay. So we went into Campo and stayed the night at a cheap motel. We got there at 3 o'clock in the morning.
That was a bad idea.
I mean, I slept until we got up.
Sleep. Cops all over the place.
I didn't see any cops.
Jesus Christ.
Anyways, we got up, and it was actually a very beautiful drive. So we made a point to just drive the back roads to wherever. We woke up not knowing where we were going to go. We were talking about... the plan when we went to bed was to go back to Picture Canyon.
He's like, "Do you want to go back there and camp?" I was like, "Fuck no."
So we got up, and I pulled up online, and I was looking for free places to camp in Colorado. I was looking at all these apps, and I found a place that was about 10 minutes north of I-70, about 30 minutes into Colorado from Kansas, that used to be a state park. State park shut down, but the land was still there, owned by the county, and you could go out there and camp, and you didn't have to check in with anybody. You just go there.
And they drained the lake.
Yeah, it was all drained. We took the whole day driving through all these areas. We found an oasis in the desert. It was really cool, all these rock formations. We stopped at all these abandoned houses that were just the closest house you couldn't even see.
That eastern side of Kansas, or Colorado, I lived in Garden City, so there's a lot of times we'd go out. The amount of stuff, how often do you hear of a state park shutting down?
Yeah.
There's multiple ones in the area that they've just closed. They're still open to land.
Yeah.
And then the houses, and then when you look up the old 1800s to 1900s, how many farmsteads used to be out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, he almost got killed by a rattlesnake going up to look at the window.
The second time we went out there, we stayed in Dodge City on our way out there, just because we wanted to get up early and go explore all these back roads in southeastern Colorado to stop at all these little farmsteads and stuff. And I'll get to that in a minute. Yeah. But so that day we drove through all this stuff, and we got to the state park, which had only been closed for 3 years.
Yeah.
And that the building, the main check-in building, had only been open for 2 years. So it was like a brand new building with a huge deck on the back, a big wooden deck as big as
this
your
room.
Living room out there, or your family room out there. And we were here to watch the sky. We'll set up our tents underneath this deck, and we'll sit up on the deck and drink beer and watch the sky. That was the plan.
Yeah, no, we didn't see. We saw a couple things on the sky that were weird.
Well, so
the thing was,
we were also on the approach path for Denver Airport, so we knew that, and the light pollution wasn't bad, but it wasn't as good as Picture Canyon. Mm-mm. The funny thing is, so the first night his tent was as big as this table, right? So I set up my tent, and so we walked around this building, and everything was boarded up, and it was really tight. You couldn't get in there, and I would have got in there if I wanted to get in there. On the back, there was a big roll-up door underneath the thing, and I'm going to set my tent up in front of this. Larry pulls out his second tent his dad gave him. It's a picnic table awning.
It was
It
see-through.
was a black picnic table awning with like a mesh for mosquitoes.
mosquito netting for a pick. Yeah.
So he sets that up, but his plan is, I'm just going to sleep in the car. So we
I'm not
set
going to
up.
sleep in something where I can see through the walls.
You're going to sleep
that.
in a car with windows.
Yeah.
It gives you like
The
a
windows
second-
gives you a little bit more protection.
Yeah.
So we sit up there all night, and a few people drive through because there was somebody in another part of the park that we couldn't see, but we knew that they were there when we were driving around. There were other people camping out there. There were a few people that drove through, and that wasn't a problem. And we didn't really see much in the sky, and then we didn't hear any, there wasn't any weird experiences until we went to bed. So I go to bed, and Larry goes to sleep in his car, and I start hearing this talking of somebody talking, having a conversation, and it's a woman.
It wasn't Larry mumbling.
No, it wasn't Larry mumbling. And I hear this. It's them. Specifically, I hear a little bit of mumbling, and I hear it's them. And it sounds like it's coming through the roll-up door behind my tent. And
In the building that you couldn't get in.
What the fuck?
And then it starts banging on you.
Yeah, a little bit. There was a little bit of noise coming from it, and I get out of the car, or I get out of the tent, and I go up, and Larry is laying in the passenger seat with a coat over his head, and I'm knocking on the window. He's not fucking moving.
That's because I didn't want to.
Yeah. It wasn't until I said something that Larry said, I wasn't going to pull this off of my face until I knew it was you. Because Larry heard a conversation as well. And did you tell that story on this show before?
I
think
I have.
But,
He
recap it.
heard other things, but among those, he heard someone say, it's them. So in my mind at that time, I'm like, there's some people out here that want to fuck with us. So I'm not staying the night here either. So we pack up, and as we're packing up, we notice on the back of Larry's car, on the tailgate, which is push button to open close, is a big handprint that's got fingers this long.
I seen the picture.
And yeah, we
have to post
pack
that
up, we
picture.
drive.
I don't know if I
We
even
drive a
have
little
it
bit
anymore.
into Kansas and find a hotel and spend the night there too. So, as manly as I like to be, both those nights we didn't end up staying.
I'll be
We
honest,
were.
you're calling out the perfect camping for OG. You go out for a little while, then make it back to the hotel.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that was the first time we went out to the desert.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, you send me that somebody a famous Bigfoot expedition guy is doing some campouts, and it's literally an expedition. She goes, "You think it's gonna be that far out in the woods?" I'm like, "It's gonna be out in the woods."
Well,
Yeah.
here's my thing. I was in Boy Scouts, right? And I've done the canoeing with the friends, and I have a buddy that he teaches cooking with Scoutmasters. He made mock apple pie one night. He was up to 2 a.m. until he made it, and mock apple pie without apples. I'm not sure how he made it. And by the time when he's making that in the fire, he was making homemade ice cream. He's also a mason, by the way.
In the
He's
fire?
one of my friends trying to get me. He's making an ice cream maker.
Oh.
So while he was cooking the mock apple pie,
dude's magic.
by God, when he woke me up, it was damn good. It
Yeah.
was 3 o'clock in the morning. I was kind of pissed. I don't like sleeping on the floor. I don't like being on the ground.
Yeah.
I don't like being fucking hot. I like having AC.
If you do it right, you don't have to worry about it. That's
Well, if we go camping, I want a bed and I want AC.
Or be cool where it's temperature-wise at
Yes,
night. It's in the
With
60s,
a
70s.
cot.
he said
No,
bed.
a bed. I want a bed.
any and all of that stuff is not a worry. The worry is no tent is going to protect you from what might be out there.
No. It's got to be you, right?
Yeah.
You and your wits and your
Or my
357.
50 Beowulf.
Yeah. So no, I'm with you.
Yeah. No, I get being comfortable because
Yeah.
I've gone from
I wanna
sleeping
enjoy
on the
myself.
ground to in a tent with a stove and a nice cot with a pad.
Yeah, you were talking
And
about
this
you
is
had
my
a stove in the
bed
winter.
and
I'm
my
like,
back and stuff.
that'd
Yeah.
be kind of cool.
So you can make yourself comfortable.
Yeah, I'd have to be.
But I can say that no matter how much I drink, It doesn't help in cold, by the way, but no matter how much you drink, you can go lay down. You're still going to think about all the shit that can happen to you out there.
And it's happening
For me, especially.
That's why you don't put your cot next to the wall. You keep it a couple feet.
Yeah, but that wall's not...
No, I'm saying, you'll hear it rip first.
I can be prepared as I possibly can. I can have the gun in my hand. If I'm asleep, something's coming in, I'm not doing anything about it.
Well,
at least the bears eat your
And the
ass
other thing
first.
is we mentioned Eric earlier. You don't even know if a gun is going to work against any of this stuff.
True.
Right?
Yeah. But last resort, you know it's going to work on you.
Yeah.
You know.
Damn.
I don't want to deal with
That
this.
was dark.
I'm out. Well, let's take a step back. I want to talk about the handprint that I did see the photograph of. To me, it looked like someone did this.
It does look like that.
Yeah.
And other than Larry knows it wasn't him, I know it wasn't me.
It's a push button. Why would I ever forcefully...
You could have been leaning against your car and your grease print, and when the dust comes over, you saw all the grease print.
It looked like
on it.
Cheeto dust.
Yeah.
So what's your thought?
That's a very valid point.
When you're peeing, you know.
So the experiences we had out there, what we heard, and the handprint, they don't necessarily go together.
Yeah.
No.
So I don't. They could be the same thing. But they don't. One doesn't validate the other for me.
And like you said, it could have been someone out there fucking with us and did that to scare us or something.
It could have been one of us on
Could have been.
Yeah, no.
The thing is we
great,
had been in the environment for the dust to settle on there for a few days.
Yeah, and I never noticed it.
Unless we did it that day, we had been in and out of that vehicle a lot.
You
out of the
would
back.
have noticed it before.
We may have noticed it before. Okay. It didn't. The way it smeared.
Didn't look like
it doesn't like if you put your hand on it and you're like sliding down. It had to be just fingers sliding down, and then your hand goes.
Well, that's
down
what it looked like to me, and I'm just.
Which isn't as natural. It's not.
I would agree.
So
unless
you put your hand on it to close it or whatever you're doing to lean on it, you're not putting your fingers on it, sliding down, and then
you'd be like, man, what if you're
maybe
again? I'm going.
I mean, that's everything in
Yeah.
this field, right?
Right.
So every experience we have could be something.
I guess the romantic part of me wants it to be a cryptid that has that long ass hand. You know, so it's like,
You
what
say
is
that
this? With the screen,
rocket coming after you.
with the screens and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
You mentioned cryptid. Who's to say that it wasn't Men in Black? Because we were watching the sky.
No,
Man.
especially when you heard it, it's them. And
Yeah, that was weird.
yeah. So
So do you think first thing crossed your mind? You thought it was somebody maybe messing with you that originally was a picture cannon?
I mean, at that place specifically, we had seen people come through, and we knew there was somebody else in the campground.
They knew we were there.
When we woke,
and they could have just said, "Oh, it's them."
when I had been laying down for maybe 15, 20 minutes, so I was semi-asleep, semi-awake. I know that I heard the voice of someone talking. And then Larry told me later when I woke him up but when I got him to take the thing off his face, he heard the same thing without me prompting him. So we heard it. So in that situation, I was worried about people fucking with us, not paranormal things.
I'm awful. Well, I think with me, and here I am being a creep again. I with the pounding of the drum makes me think of.
Well, that was at the other place.
Makes
Several
me think
hundred miles away.
Canyon, the Ape Canyon attacks where they're pounding on their chest like a gorilla. Then you got the print. You hear the screams like a woman. So I'm just trying to wrap this thing. Yeah, it's gonna be Bigfoot. So that's me.
Yeah.
No, I get it. It's two different sites. So
Yeah.
and
It is weird that they said that you heard. It's them.
it's them.
That is. I mean, that
Larry heard a little. I don't know what you said. You
I
said the
thought-
other part of the conversation.
I couldn't make out what the conversation was, but
He thought I was on the phone talking to my wife. There was that much of somebody talking.
yeah, it sounded like someone walking around. Like it sounded
It
like
was
you
an
calling her
in-depth
saying, "Hey,
conversation.
we're going to sleep," that kind of stuff.
Interesting.
But I couldn't make out what it was, and then they walked
and it's
closer
paired
to the
down,
passenger
so he didn't
window.
record anything.
No, there's no evidence.
Well-
the only thing is any kind of collaboration.
Why would I have
is-
recorded
is-
while trying to sleep? I mean,
Well,
why would you put your coat over
Why would you
your
wake up in the
face?
middle of the night and take a picture of yourself?
I did put out a camera at one point, but I think I took it down when we went to bed because it was a camera that didn't last very long.
Yeah, we put a GoPro up. Or you put a GoPro up, yeah.
And we're just giving Paradigm a hard time.
Yeah, well,
No, I know.
We all have had that situation of like, yeah, that would have been smart.
Giving
had I just
Paradigm a hard
put
time.
Yeah. But I mean, just, oh, I did have a camera in my hand. Why didn't I move it or turn on my phone just to see if it can pick anything up?
And in all honesty, I'm lucky I didn't shoot my head off because as I was sleeping with the coat over my head, I had my gun in my hand because I was scared. I barely fell. I was like you. I fell asleep for maybe 10 minutes.
Did you have a safety on the handgun?
No. And I had it like right here. I could have fallen asleep.
You could have shot me.
Yeah.
Oh,
I could have.
He could have shot me the second time.
You knocked on the window, right?
Hey,
Larry, did you? Oh.
So that was the first time we went out to Colorado.
Second one's on me.
And you went out again after that with him.
So the following spring in May,
shame on me.
For my birthday, I was like, I want to go do 3 nights out there, and I had several other people coming.
Didn't even last one.
I had several other people coming, and Larry was coming, and a few other people.
Are these the ones that canceled on you because Larry showed up?
No, it was a mix of people that didn't even know Larry. Some people did, but it was most people canceled well before.
They like a week or two.
But like 1 or 2 that week, they were like, "Oh, I can't do it." But we had already planned, and we were going to do 3 nights, and we were going to drive out after work, I think.
Yep.
And stay in Dodge City, and then drive out early so we could get out there during the day.
I'm laughing because I graduated high school from Garden City.
Yeah.
56 miles just west of Dodge. Dodge was a high school.
Mm-hmm. I ran to Dodge.
Yeah. I've gotten the hell out of Dodge.
I've
been in a bank with a mask on in Dodge, which was like a bucket list. Like I thought I'd never be able to wear a mask into a bank in Dodge City and ask for money. COVID was an amazing thing.
That's fantastic.
But no, so that's the area.
My daughter goes to Hayes.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I've been out there a lot.
Yeah. No, I mean, I got family out in that area. Colby, Newton, Santana, Blood, all that fun stuff area. But I mean, I've done all the back roads. In that whole area, and there's not a lot to see. It is not.
Our focus wasn't that area.
So we mentioned that the first time we were driving out to Campo on the back roads out in southeast Colorado, that it felt like you were on the surface of the moon.
Yeah,
like you couldn't even see anything on the horizon. Like it was just flat desert.
Oklahoma is the same thing. The only pretty area near that is if you're hitting. I don't know if you ever done the Medicine Lodge.
Yeah.
The cold water where it's got the red rock, like a mini Badlands, like doesn't look like anything Kansas would normally have. That's that's the prettiest, and then you get back to that plains desert.
Yeah. That was Red Rock we went through.
Yeah.
Between the first night and the second night, where there was like an oasis dug into the ground.
Yeah, it was near.
It was also a state park that shut down, and people were just out there.
Yeah, it was near Twin Butts. I think is what it was.
I never heard of that until I went to eastern Colorado. The state parks literally not having enough funding that they just shut down. No, like there's parks, and then there's like roadside attractions that have shut down. Like there's one we went 3 years ago that they were trying to get funding to get it open back up because it's like a national monument. It's been there since like the 1920s or something like that. But yeah, that area, it's not good for farming. Cattle's not as prominent as it is anymore. There's a ton of just small towns are just dying.
Yeah. I tried to, since the second time we went out there, talk to historical societies or other people, and there's just nothing there anymore. I mean, there's still the little towns or whatever, but even like the historical societies and all this city stuff, it's all just gone because they don't have the funds for it.
You guys will get a kick out of the second trip.
So the second trip, we go to Dodge City, we stay the night, and we get up and we get out to we're doing some back roads and stuff too, but we get out to Picture Canyon around noon.
Yeah,
I think it was like 11:30.
Yeah,
and we set up, and we specifically set up, and Larry had a real tent this time. We set up opposite in the spots. I set up my tent where Larry's fake tent was the first time, and he set up his tent in the other spot. In the exact, and there were people out there when we got there, but they were BLM workers. They were and they left, so there was nobody there. And after getting set up, sit down, we have a couple drinks, and I'm like, I'm going hiking. My very favorite thing to do in the outdoors is hiking. I just love to go, explore, hike, and do. So I just take off. Grab my backpack, and I just take off. And I end up in Oklahoma.
Do you have a map on where you're going?
No.
You don't have a predestined...
I'm following the trail.
Uh-huh.
I end up in Oklahoma, and then I knew I have a...
Didn't you
for
end up
whatever
in
reason,
Utah
I
or
have a
something?
really good... What?
Didn't you end up in Utah?
No. Utah's on the other side.
Whoa!
That was a joke.
What the hell of a trip?
That wrong
Because he likes to hike.
Hey, Daniel Boone.
But yeah, I mean, there were trails out there, and I didn't have a map, but I'm the kind of person that if I go somewhere, I know where I came from and I know how to get back. And
So that's
I had
separation
studied
of
the
laws.
area out there, so I knew that I mean, I kind of always know where I'm at and what I'm doing. It. So no, I wasn't worried about that. And Larry didn't want to go. So I left Larry at the campsite, and I find the pictograph, and I find the old farmsteads. I never saw the teepee rings, but I ended up in Oklahoma.
That's pretty cool.
And because there was a fence and a sign, and I went through the gate, and I knew that I was in Oklahoma. And then I turned around, and then instead of following the path, I knew that if I followed this canyon, because I'd walked it around the rim, I'd end up back above where we were camping. So that's what I did. I was gone for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
And then there was at one point
I was expecting like an hour.
on my way back, there was a part where I could come down from the ridge. So I met back up on the trail that I walked in about 30 minutes outside of where we were camping. And we had radios. And I knew that Larry had been drinking because we started drinking when I left.
I drank.
And I knew he had his .22 rifle out there, and I could hear it by the time I got up there. So on the radio, I'm like, Larry. And he's like, who the fuck are you? Like, stop shooting, I'm coming. And I get up there, and Larry is plastered drunk. And it's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Bright, sunny day. There's no clouds. And he's shooting off at the canyon walls. And he said he was shooting at some Native American guy.
Fucks with horses. That was his name.
Yeah, but he was like... As soon as I walked up to the campsite, he's like, watch out, I threw up over there. And the thing was, I had brought this... He brought stuff to drink. I brought a couple bottles of moonshine because it was my birthday. I wanted to celebrate. It's like, I drank your moonshine.
I drank all mine and all his.
Fucking drunk. And the thing was, even though it was a bright sunny day, he was terrified to be alone. The only thing he could do was drink. So I get back to plaster Larry at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
With a gun.
We got that put away.
Okay.
He took that away from me.
By the time I got actually around to him, he had stopped. But and the plan was, because we were going to be there 2 or 3 other nights.
But I had already drank all the
you were
alcohol.
already wasted.
You already wasted all the alcohol.
And the thing was driving out there, we already knew that was at a time that there were a ton of fires in Colorado. So the sky was obscured more than we had planned. So we were just going to hang out again that night. And Larry, to his credit, we would have made it through the night if I didn't have other shit happen to me. He
passed out.
Went to bed at like
out.
10 o'clock. Like, he had a cot in his tent and he went and laid down.
And 3 bottles of moonshine.
Yeah.
And I sat out there because we still had a little bit left, and I was drinking and I was watching the sky, doing the same thing in the same spot, faced away from the tents and the awning behind us. And he's snoring, as you guys probably know.
Oh, yeah, we know.
Shaking the whole place.
Drooling. Waterfall.
No CPAP in sight.
Waterfall coming down.
I'm sitting there listening to podcasts, and I hear what sounds like all these pots and pans moving around, all this shit clattering around. What the fuck is going on? And I stand up and turn around, and my tent is open. My tent is open.
Wasn't me. I was passed out.
Yeah. I'm pretty diligent about that, especially since I know that there's scorpions and
you don't want things
rattlesnakes out there. I can't say 100% that I didn't leave it open, but I'm pretty sure I didn't leave it open. I'm watching the tent. I'm looking at his tent next to mine, hearing him snore. I'm watching my tent, and I can still hear the clattering around. There's something in my tent, whether I left it open or not. I go in my tent, stuff is moved around, nothing in there.
And you didn't see anything leave.
Nothing lived. Nothing, like, there's nothing.
And this is the same spot you were before.
Mm-hmm.
Except for our tents were in the opposite spots.
Well, I mean, to be honest, Parachump's tent was so small, there's nothing to move around. So
well, this time he had
I had a full tent this time.
Well, I'm just saying, where you had your tent was at the same spot where his was, but it didn't have anything for it to be able to move.
So I'm like, this thing's out to get me. I'm like, I'm not going to sleep. So I actually, I sat there for a little bit and I considered, what am I going to do? And I'm like, well, I'm just going to pack my shit up. I didn't try to wake Larry up, actually. I'm just going to pack my shit up and I'm going to sit here. If I fall asleep in the chair, I fall asleep in the chair.
I would have left.
Fuck
just
you, Larry. Drink my moonshine, motherfucker.
Everything's gone.
He had his car keys with him. I just, started putting my shit away, to put into his car. And he woke up because he heard me doing that.
I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
I'm like, I'm not going to fucking sleep in this thing. And then he sees some little Native American boy in the middle of our campsite.
Yeah, so I was...
And then we pack up and we leave.
I was already awoke because he had started packing up. And I was like, I can't fucking go back to sleep now. I'm like half hammered. It's not going to happen. So I was like, I'll pack my stuff up too. So we started packing everything up.
We drove all the way back to Kansas City that night. We didn't stop. We had to stop once to kind of snooze for 5 minutes. But I drove most of the way back.
Yeah. I was packing up my stuff.
Oh yeah, he had 3 bottles of
He was taking stuff to the car. I was by myself at the little campsite, and he was 100 yards away. I turned, and there was a little Native American kid, about 4 feet tall, just standing there looking at me 10 feet away. And I was like, cool. And I just turned around and went and did my other stuff, and he was gone.
I didn't see the Native American kid.
And to my credit, I was plastered. Yeah, I mean, that could have been an hallucination.
Could have been on your own spirit for the
I
journey.
decided at that point that I was not going to go back out there, just me and Larry again.
Well, what he would say is, I'm not going to camp with Larry because it's all his fault because stuff's attached to him.
Well, I was just thinking, the thing you supposedly saw in my
You ever
house
think maybe-
was only 4 feet tall. I just
Maybe,
wondered if this little fella fell.
you're just like a beacon.
Yeah.
Out in the middle where there's nothing, and this beacon of parachum for supernatural or spiritual things.
I would
see
say
you.
if Larry is a beacon, so am I. Because I have just as much stuff happen to me when I'm by myself as I do with him.
Do you think maybe you amplify each other?
Maybe.
That's possible.
So, elaborate. What have you come across paranormal that you both have experienced?
Ooh.
They don't remember the.
Well, so the thing
Yeah.
is
Lost
Larry has better hearing than I do.
He
but
does.
I have much better eyesight than Larry does.
Yeah, I have what's called night blindness. So at night, I have to have a flashlight on because no matter what, if I'm going downstairs or hiking or something, I don't
Or
have.
even if you're just sitting there.
Or if I'm just sitting there, I can't tell distance in the dark. So I can't tell how if there's a step
I'm
down.
just laughing. I'm now going to start throwing balls at Larry at investigations.
Yeah, I wouldn't see it fucking coming.
Speaking of balls,
Oh god.
Well, and that's why I brought it up, because there's a dark, shadowy ball you will
so we'll get to
experience,
that
right?
in a minute. First, I want to follow up on something we mentioned already, and that's Larry mumbling to himself.
So,
We
yeah,
found
how'd you
out
figure that?
later. So at that time, we didn't know. We did hear voices. So the second time, we had some other stuff happen to us, but it was a few little lights in the sky and a few little things, and
I don't remember any of that.
Larry was wasted, and and I was upset with him. And
that's a little.
yeah, so we did have a few other little things happen that night, but the first time specifically, we had to stop the podcast that was playing over the speaker probably a dozen or more times because we thought we were hearing something talk over it. Fast forward like a year and a half, 2 years later.
I don't know. This is like maybe a year and a half ago.
Oh no, it wasn't that close.
Okay.
But
talking about
so
Melbourne, right?
we'll get to Melbourne.
Okay.
So there's another. So at McIntyre, Larry and I were at McIntyre with David Glidden. And Glidden it was a Sunday night, and Glidden was coming up to investigate, and he called me and he said, "Hey, come out if you can." So I brought Larry. And we're all sitting around, and we have other stuff happen that night.
Yeah.
And for me personally, McIntyre's never been a super active place for me, but I know it's very active. Anyways, we're all in the attic. I'm sitting in the southwest corner. Larry is sitting in the northwest corner, and Glidden is over in the southeast corner of the upstairs. And there's cat balls everywhere. That's why I mentioned the balls. There's cat balls everywhere. And a few of them are going off and stuff. Yeah, the little toys.
The light up toys. Yeah.
But there's a moment that we hear this talking. And we keep asking Larry if it's him, because it seems to be coming in the direction of him, and he keeps insisting that it's not. So we end the night with that. Like, we don't know if it's Larry or not, but it seems to be coming from him. It doesn't necessarily sound like Larry, but it seems to be coming from that direction. And then, I think it was 2022 we were in Malvern.
Yeah.
So it's been 3 years now.
Wow.
Spring of 2022, a bunch of us went to Malvern. But the people we were with, they weren't investigators. They were there to talk about a movie they wanted to make. And I thought it would be a good place for people to, because it was going to be a horror movie, it would be a good place for people to bounce ideas off of. Anyways, the second night we had to ourselves completely.
Yeah.
It was just you, me, and our friend Jesse. And one of the things about Malvern is,
it's scary.
if you know Malvern at all, Malvern Manor in Malvern, Iowa, they have what's called the Nurses Wing on the east side of the building. And Josh Hurd, who owns it, is partial owner and runs everything there. He never vacuums down there, because whenever he vacuums down there, he has crazy shit happen, so he just doesn't do it. So I'm like,
let's have Larry
let's
vacuum.
go fucking vacuum down there. And though also, by the way, 30 minutes after we're vacuum, we're going to sit down here and have a blindfolded Ouija board session. So that's my plan. Like, Larry, I put through shit. I put him through shit. Just, he does it. He doesn't like it,
sometimes.
but I put him through shit.
I have asked him, why the fuck do you do that? Why do you let him do that to you?
Because there's
And he
intrigue.
goes, he's trying to broaden me. I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
that. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, yeah.
I had to be clear about that. I did
Yeah.
question him why he would let you do that to me.
I will push Larry as far as he can go, as far as he's willing to go. And I do it on purpose, and Larry knows I do it on purpose.
Yeah.
He can tell me no, but I'll give him shit if he tells me no.
Yeah.
But he can tell me no.
I've really
Yeah.
only never done it once, and it's
Yeah.
the white
Yeah.
face house. Yeah.
Anyways, we were at Malvern, and we were taking turns. There were three of us. So two people were on the board in the nurses' wing, on the north side of the nurses' wing, 30 minutes after we vacuum, which we didn't have anything happen when we were vacuuming, but 30 minutes after we vacuumed.
They wanted me to go down there by myself and
Yeah.
vacuum, and I was like, fuck that.
So anyways, we're sitting down there, and because there's three of us, two people were on the board blindfolded, and one person was the camera, and we were rotating. At some point that night, I have a GoPro in one hand with the light, and I'm actually streaming on TikTok in my other hand, and I'm walking around, and we start hearing these voices, and I
didn't hear anything.
Yeah, you did.
Oh.
No, you were like, what the fuck is that?
Oh.
Like, that's the
It's
thing.
on camera.
Larry hears these voices too. He does. We were sitting in the desert,
That's
and
right,
you were
yeah.
hearing these voices. So I have the GoPro, and I have the and they were close to the same angle, but they weren't quite the same. And we were hearing these voices at random times, and Larry's sitting there shaking.
No.
But he's doing it. And we start hearing these voices, and I'm like, the fuck? And I clipped up that live, and I put things out there because you couldn't see Larry's face. And when I got home, and I pulled the footage from the GoPro, you can see Larry mumbling, and then like say, "What the fuck was that?"
God, kidding me.
And then he'll mumble again. He's like, "I fucking heard that." And we're all like, "What the fuck? There's somebody talking in here."
When I get scared,
so
I
Larry,
mumble.
when he's terrified, he mumbles to himself and doesn't know he does it. And he hears it and he thinks it's something else. So just be aware.
He's
When you're
petrified
investigating,
and we
if you
something.
hear mumbling, it's Larry. Just check on him.
He's about to pee his pants.
I almost did because we were getting. He was asking questions.
The Ouija board was doing a lot of stuff. I mean, we were having what seemed like interaction with other things. So the voices seemed like they were happening with what we were doing. I don't discount any of that. But Larry was clearly mumbling to himself.
So obviously we just gotta strap a GoPro on his
Yeah.
fucking ass.
Just have it
When we're
pointed
Well,
at.
my ass wasn't talking.
No, but,
Well, it does. Quite
Well, it
often.
does, but
No, it never stops. So we have to have
Yeah.
that on him.
We have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, but also with our mic array now, his mic will pick that up, and we'll be able to focus
tell
in
it's
on
coming from me.
Now I want video footage of that. I want proof.
Well, we'll be able
because
to
it'll be
zoom
just
in
a
and
story.
that. Yeah, well,
right?
that's true.
Right.
But how about we take a 5-minute break
Yeah,
so we can refresh drinks, use the restroom. I gotta double check, make sure I got enough video on my camera out there.
And I want to
Yeah.
see the Detroit Lions lost. They were down
Yeah.
by 10 points.
So we'll be right back, everybody. Give us 5.